Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pair Program. Tim Winkler here with Mike Gruen. So Mike, I was listening to my business podcast this morning. I'll shout out Morning Brew. Love to kind of have them kick me off with my 30 minutes of what's going on in the world. They highlighted that there is a battle for toy supremacy that's happening as we speak. This week, the National Toy Hall of Fame, and that is a real organization. I fact checked that. They just released their 12 finalists being considered for entry into their sacred hall. And so some of the nominations for this year were Hess toy trucks, Pokemon trading cards, Transformers, and like the trampoline. And so in the spirit of, always liking to play like the greatest of all time toy with you, what would you say is your GOAT toy?
Not my actual answer, but the first thing that jumped to mind was Jarts, but the most dangerous toy.
I don't think they make those anymore.
No, they
right?
don't. They stopped making the liability on that was huge. Yeah, they stopped with Jarts a long time ago. What was like growing up as a little kid, I played with G.I. Joes a lot. I had a lot of G.I. Joes. It's going to be G.I. Joe or Lego for me. I mean, those are the two that I probably spent the most time with as a kid. So
yeah, great answer.
Pretty bland.
Great. Survey says no, for sure. Like G.I. Joes, I was super hooked on G.I. Joes, Legos as well. I went through, this was really challenging for me, but I tried to narrow it down to the top three. And they would have been like sports cards, like trading cards, Nerf guns, and the Game Boy. And then if I had to land on just one, I'm probably going to go with sports cards just because I still enjoy those today. Like kind of stood the test of time for me. So I'm sticking to that answer. I'm curious on you all, Megan, any GOAT toy that was near and dear to you as a kid?
It's funny when you said Hess trucks, it just brought back memories. Like every Christmas, it was always just, it was never anything that I necessarily played with, but it was always there. It was always present in our lives. And so that just stuck out for me. I feel like that's the one.
Yeah, it was a Christmas gift for me. It was an old school Hess toy truck. And I was like, man, they don't make those anymore.
And my parents probably have, like hundreds of them in their in the attic, right?
Just collecting dust.
Yes.
Greg, what about you? Goat toy?
I really like the Hot Wheels. We tried to connect those orange little plastic roadways and loop them so the car stayed on there. But it was a lot of fun, and you loop them around the whole room. So it was just so fun to see it, go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, they used to have the ones where you could dip them in water. They change colors. Got real advanced at that point.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's transition to the actual pod here. So we're gonna fill the listeners in on what we're chatting about today. We're gonna be exploring a few topics that I believe are top of mind for both job seekers and for startup founders in this kind of unique economic market that we're in 2024. Those two topics are consulting career opportunities for job seekers and then mergers and acquisitions for founders. And so I'm going to clarify a little bit on this. So as most of you listeners are aware, I run a recruiting business, Hatch IT. We focus on connecting technologists with jobs that are at startups and small businesses. We've been doing this for over 12 years now, and we've seen a lot of patterns and trends fluctuate in the startup job market, many of which, will kind of mirror the macroeconomic trends that are happening. But in 2024 specifically, what we've observed on the job seeker side is this trend of more and more candidates kind of looking for job opportunities that are flexible in nature. For example, like fractional consulting, it's like a 1099 or flex hours or remote work, et cetera. And these opportunities versus maybe your traditional, full-time W-2 permanent employee with a company, right? And on the startup side, we've seen, venture capital investment sadly kind of hit its lowest level of activity in nearly 5 years in the US. And that's kind of created this ripple effect for, startup founders, especially those in early stages who may now be facing like a shortened financial runway, maybe reconsidering their strategic options earlier than anticipated due to this decreased availability of capital. And so now those options might be pivoting to a merger or acquisition or some form of strategic partnership. So I kind of wanted to just set the table here on those two kind of topics, and then I'm excited to introduce our two guests that are joining us that are going to shed light on these topics. Both of our guests work for a company that specializes in consulting, advisory, and growth services, a lot of which is in the federal space. And that company is Deepwater Point and Associates. And our first guest is Meghan DiAndrea, the Vice President of People Operations at Deepwater. And we have Greg Buckis, the Chief Financial Officer at Deepwater. So Meghan and Greg, thank you both for joining us today on the PAIR program.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. All right. Now, before we dive in, we like to kick things off with our Pair Me Up segment. Here's where we all kind of go around the room. We'll spitball a complimentary pairing of our choice. Mike, you lead us off. What's your pairing for today?
So going way back to my childhood, growing up, we used to have this for dinner all the time. And in retrospect, what my mom was thinking. Jelly blintzes with chocolate powder sprinkled on top. It was so the chocolate powder and the jelly blintzes were phenomenal. It's like a dessert. Like there were a couple meals that, like looking back, it's like, yeah, I guess my mom was just sort of she admits it. She was like, yeah, this is just makes kids happy and whatever. But it was basically dessert. Apricot jelly was my jam.
Oh,
part of the fun. And grape jelly. Those were the two. And then chocolate powder.
So that was the meal?
That was dinner.
Sweet. It kind of reminds me of like breakfast for dinner. Like
yeah. But this was like dessert for dinner.
Just dessert for dinner. Has this tradition carried on in your household at all?
I would, except I'd definitely do it. We did something similar also, cream of wheat with chocolate powder on top. I think I've used that in a pairing before. And so that my kids have definitely experienced that. But the blintzes, I never learned how to make the blintzes. And my mom had like a little crepe maker. It was pretty cool. As soon as she took it out, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I know it's for dinner.
Like, I'm having seconds, Mom. That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Good stuff. I will jump in. So I'm going to go with increased screen time and fantasy football season. Pretty obvious one here, but it's that kind of time of year where, football season's upon us. And I always get pulled into, it seems like another, league each year. So right now I'm managing teams in 3 different leagues. Some of these have pretty large buy-ins tied to them. So, for that reason, I find myself spending a ridiculous amount of time on my phone, primarily on like a Tuesday night, right? It's like waiver wire night, just kind of checking on injury updates and who's going to come on the waiver wire. I get a little bit too deep into it, and I think my wife is a little bit annoyed with me, but it's just, it's for these, few months between the fall and the winter. Not entirely proud of that, but I'd say it's probably a better use of my time than sitting there and scanning Instagram all night. So I'm going with increased screen time and fantasy football season, and that's a wrap for me. Let's pass it over to our guest, Meghan. How about yourself? Quick intro and your pairing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I, Meghan DiAndrea, I have been in GovCon almost 15 years now, focused primarily in the human resources and recruiting space, corporate operations, mostly for small, mid-sized growing organizations. So I joined Deepwater Point about 2 years ago, so pre-purchase, Legacy WolfGen, and joined the post-merger integration practice. So now I'm able to lean in and provide that support to organizations who are experiencing growth post-acquisition.
Awesome.
And my pairing I'm hoping for chilly weather. And so I leaned into, we're going to have a fire in the fireplace and some bourbon and just relax after the kids go to bed.
It's a great pairing.
That's fantastic pairing.
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the humidity to pass and then I'm ready for cool.
A real fireplace, or is it gas? fireplace?
Oh, it's a gas fireplace, unfortunately.
You still get the feels of being by the fireplace.
I'll give you 75%.
Deduct 1 point, but it's still a good answer.
It's a great answer. This time of year, I'm usually I love this time of year because I do a lot with firewood. With cutting it and splitting it. It's like one of the things. I grew up in a more rural area, and it's just one of the things I enjoy doing. So anyway.
Yeah, that's all. We love it. We've got outdoor fire pit, but
cool.
Yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve with my current home is we don't have a fireplace. We've got like one of those pellet stoves, which I kind of scratch that itch, but something to be said about having a nice fireplace. The mantle right there, and sit there and kind of gather around.
Exactly.
Winter night, yeah. That's great. Love the pairing, and thanks again for joining us. Greg, pass it to you. Quick introduction and your pairing.
Sure. I'm CFO here at Deepwater Point and Associates. My background has really been a lot of GovCon, so 25 plus years of GovCon. And then intermixed with that, they've all been technology-related companies, but tech public companies. So helping taking them public has been some of what I've done over my history. And I'm here really to help with the growth of the company. Since we've had a large acquisition and we're on the path for more. So they want some internal structure and we're working on that. Cool. My pairing is going to be pretty basic, but I have a favorite place. I'm trying not to plug it, but I'm going to plug it. In at Little Washington, out there in Little Washington, Virginia, they have a really good pairing of food. They have an 8-course meal. And each one has a different wine with it. So I must say that's probably the best experience I've ever had. Anyway, so that's pretty standard, right?
I've heard great things. I've never been. It's on the kind of bucket list for my wife and I to get out. We're big foodies, and what's the do you have to make a reservation like months in advance? Is that kind of the situation?
Yes, months in advance, but it's well worth it. It's a lot of fun.
I've heard amazing reviews about the food. The chef is fantastic. And wine and food, also just a kind of traditional pairing. So awesome. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for the intros. Thanks again for joining us. And let's jump into the heart of the discussion. So I gave a little bit more context earlier to kind of highlight some of the topics that we're going to hit on the conversation. We're going to creatively kind of cover these topics organically by having our guests expand a little bit more on Deepwater's kind of business model, going a little bit deeper into how they employ talent. And then also we're going to go deeper into the transaction advisory services and some of the impacts that these types of mergers might have on a company, from financial to cultural and so forth. So Meghan, let's start with you first. Can you maybe just give us a little bit more of the elevator pitch on the type of work that Deepwater is delivering? And then I'd like to expand a little bit more on this kind of consultant heavy model that you all deploy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a growth focused strategic management consulting firm, right? So we help our clients grow both organically and inorganically by coming in and really focusing on the value creation. So for us, it's about getting in deep with the client, understanding what they do and what their potential growth vectors are. And then how do we support them through that? And that could be in a myriad of ways. It could be some fractional BD support. It could be helping them capture their next big win. It could be in, helping them submit and write a proposal for their next big GWAC or, government-wide contracting vehicle, right? But how do we help them open the doors? How do we help them get to the next phase of their growth? And we do that both organically and inorganically. So transaction advisory services is obviously the inorganic piece of our business, where we, do everything from helping them source potential acquisition targets to providing due diligence. And my favorite is post-merger integration.
In vertical wise, right? So we obviously talked a little bit about federal, government. What are there other industries that maybe that are outside of that traditional kind of wheelhouse that you work with?
I would say that we're primarily in government contracting services. We do have some commercial clients who are looking to break in or maybe have small business units that focus on GovCon, but they want to figure out, okay, how do we expand within this industry? How do we make more of an impact? How do we maybe bring a software tool or a piece of technology to the space? So, but GovCon is the heart and soul of what we do. We, source both candidates for 1099s or W-2 work from GovCon. I mean, that's really, that's our bread and butter.
And is it primarily services companies, or do you work with any product companies?
Yeah, we do. We work with product companies all the time. As I mentioned, right, there could be a commercial product that they want to take to the government space. And how do they do that? How do they break in? How do they overcome compliance concerns? So, we certainly support really anybody that would want to venture into the government services space. We can help them.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we've founded or started at least the deep water business on consultants who have an entree into an agency, whether it's the defense side or federal government side. So we have folks who know who's running those agencies and what type of work would be needed for them. And then if it fits with the client, then they introduce to others, and it helps them expand in their market and grow their business.
Yeah, and that's the fascinating piece about this business model. It's actually what led me down the path of reaching out to both of you. Was we kind of play in some similar spaces, just kind of given our roots here in the DC area. From a talent perspective, we're usually interacting with more technical candidates, but that can also lead down to more strategic level, if we're talking BD types of roles at a high level. And some of these individuals, that we talk to, they're like, hey, I'm trying to do more of like a consulting type of career path, and I'm talking to Deepwater Point Associates, and so then I started to go down the path of just a little more research into your all's company portfolio and the structure of your employees. And I was really fascinated because I don't see this too often. Again, I'm going to go off of like the intro that we're seeing a lot more of this kind of push towards consulting. And it's usually more senior level individuals that have maybe worked a number of years in the corporate setting and now want to kind of either work a part-time gig or try to start their own thing, but they still need a way to kind of have some revenue kind of coming through the door. So let's dig deeper on this. Talk to me a little bit about one, the types of individuals that are kind of a good fit for this consulting labor workforce that you all deploy, and then what are some of the skill sets that are you find consistent, if it's hard skills or soft skills, what are some of the molds of profiles of these individuals?
Yeah, so I think our business model gives us the ability to be flexible. And to your point earlier, that's something that's really seems to be really important in the talent space right now. We've got experts who come out of GovCon who may have helped organizations grow or been part of critical transactions that want to continue to do that, right? There could be individuals who come out of any of the branches of the military, any service within the government, any agency within the government. So they are more mission focused, right? They want to continue to focus on the missions that are important to them, the missions of their clients. So how do we match that together? Well, we've got a business model that allows us to do that. They can come in, they can still live post-retirement life maybe, right? They've given their service to the military or to the government, and they want to continue to support those missions, but they don't want to do it full time. Well, we have the ability to tap into them, tap into their subject matter expertise, whether it be around, critical new technologies that are coming into the space, whether it be access. Maybe clients need access to be able to figure out and understand what it is that the next big thing is that this agency is looking for. So we can be flexible and agile. And I think that's what brings the talent to us, is they want that flexibility and the agility that comes with a career at this point. And I say this point, I mean, in the world, right? Like where we are as a society, where flexibility is important and the ability to focus on things that you're passionate about within your career. And so I think that the evolution of that over the last couple of years has led to a business model like ours being successful.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you're seeing, because one of the things, I have a lot of friends that are in government, and they're I'm older, and so they're older, and they're getting towards that retirement age, and a number of them are basically retiring from government service, and that flexibility. Like, I know what's driving them is the idea of becoming like digital nomads or just moving abroad. Are you seeing that same sort of trend of, yeah, it's that flexibility? It's not just about contracting or whatever. It's really about where I live and when I work.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that's probably more of a driver, Mike, than any of the other. How can I live my lifestyle the way that I want to live it?
From Spain.
Still be able to,
from Spain.
Or from the beaches of Greece, right? Like I want to be there. I've got a home that I can be, for the next 4 months, I can go live there because I hate the weather here in the DMV. Okay, great. Go do that.
Right.
What is it that you want to do in that time? Well, if this project comes up, maybe I'll provide support here. Just let me know, right? When you've got a client or when there's an opportunity that I can really contribute in. And I think it becomes more of a passion project, right? It's those things, it's the initiatives that are important to them. They want to continue to lean in on, but ultimately their lifestyle is probably the most important thing at this point.
So you guys kind of have this ongoing talent marketplace of how many individuals would you say? So maybe for some context, how big is Deepwater Point and Associates from a headcount perspective, and breaking that between maybe full-time internal folks versus the consulting team?
Yeah, so we've got less than 100 full-time consultants that sit in-house that support our client engagements. And we've got between 400 and 500 independent consultants. And so those are the folks that we can pull on who bring subject matter expertise, either, as an agency SME, as a former military SME, or maybe it's a technology SME that comes to the table. So we've got, a lot of reach back.
And you kind of have them, you just kind of allocated in maybe a system that whenever a client comes in and says, hey, we need we really want to work with HHS, you've got the short list of folks that have HHS in that background, and you kind of do your matchmaking that way.
Absolutely. We sit down and figure out how do we deliver the best value to the client. That at the end of the day is the ultimate goal. And so when we allocate against that value creation, we sit down and say, okay, what combination of individuals will get the most value for our client? And to your point, exactly, if we know that we need somebody who's, been in HHS for the last 15 years, well, great, we'll find you that person.
So I'm always curious in terms of, it sounds like these are folks that usually also have, good personal skills or soft skills, what you might call them. How are you all kind of vetting these individuals to feel confident that they're going to go out and represent, the Deepwater Point brand, even though it's a 1099 kind of engagement? What are some of the things that you're kind of looking for when you're sussing out some of like those soft skills with these individuals?
So everybody comes in through our existing network, which makes it easy. Right. So if we're out at a networking event and we're having conversation, we're pretty quickly able to assess whether or not that person has the soft skills that we need. Right. Are they engaging? Are they able to communicate effectively? Not everybody is born a consultant. And, if you've been in the same industry or doing the same thing for the last 15, 20, 25 years, maybe consulting is not what you naturally think of as your next go-to. But we bring them into the fold, right? If you've got those soft skills, if you have the market entry that's needed, if you bring the technology aspect, those qualifications that we need to the table, we're then able to surround those individuals with the true consultants who then can deliver to the client. So we're agile from that perspective as well, right? How do we tap into these individuals? How do we give them the right visibility without necessarily putting them, out in front of a client that may not be what they want to do, that may not be what they're best at. So because we have such a large resource pool, we're able to kind of lean in and get to know these individuals and make sure that, they're truly able to deliver what they want and how they want it.
I think one of the other things that's interesting. Sorry, go on.
No, please. The other thing is a 4-star general doesn't have to be vetted too much. You don't arrive at that position by just being a regular street person.
Yeah,
that's right. That's true. One of the things. So as I not that long ago explored the fractional route and consulting and contracting, and one of the things from my perspective that was like a daunting challenge was the always hustle nature of it. Like, I don't want, like, my mom had her own company very similar to Tim's. It was a staffing agency, recruiting, and 50% of her job was just finding the next job. And so rather than doing the actual work that she really enjoyed, and for me, like, that's daunting. Like, that would be, and so I imagine that you guys are very attractive from that perspective, because there's a lot of people that are skilled, capable, but like that sales and marketing aspect, just they don't even want to be bothered with. Just tell me where to go. These are the types of projects I work on. I imagine you're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's what's really fascinating and unique about this is like you're offering these individuals kind of a consistent pipeline of leads. It's like you consult with us and we'll bring in the work. You all help us deliver. So it's a really nice, mutually beneficial partnership. And I'll ask one last question on this, and then we can transition a little bit more into like the transaction advisory stuff. But you kind of touched on this briefly, Meghan. But it's a very sporadic kind of level of engagement. It seems like that's different for every individual. Is there a minimum threshold that you try to request from them? If it's an hourly threshold per month or what have you, that you like ideally individuals are committed to, or I guess what commitments are there in place, if any?
I would say there isn't really a threshold commitment. Greg, feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. We really try to meet individuals where they are. So some say, you know what, I really want to do 20 hours a week, or more of a part-time consistent basis. And some individuals are like, hey, listen, I really want to help you on this specific engagement right now. And that's going to be all of my energy. And then, to Mike's point earlier, like, I'm going to go disappear for the next 6 months and go live my best life somewhere else. Right. And I will let you know when I'm back and available. So, it really depends, honestly.
Some of the clients say, I'd like to get the knowledge and entree with somebody in the business development area for a couple days a month.
Yeah.
So the retired admiral can actually do the traveling and family stuff they want to do on the off time, their own time.
Yep.
And then they can schedule those 3 days a month with the client. And they've got time on their hands plus income coming in. Plus they're able to share their knowledge and still stay engaged in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like a flexible advisory, board member that comes and goes, as the client needs them. So, yeah, it's a really creative space. I'm excited to hear that that's out there. I think that that's going to be an area that continues to grow as you have, some of the folks transitioning, that are in the either military or government or even in industry. I think that you can really kind of tap all different areas. So. kudos on a creative outlet for them. All right, let's kind of make a little bit of a pivot here to the second part of this conversation. And Greg, I'll start with you on this. I'd love to take this conversation down that path of the transaction advisory services route. So first off, can you expand a little bit more on what these services consist of, and maybe provide a few examples or use cases as to why and when this service would be appealing to a customer or client?
Sure. So I have a business and it's 10 million and it doesn't have a lot of capacity for inorganic growth on its own. It has a lot of capacity for organic, but it's very slow. It's a 3% a year. They can't expand within their own complement. So they need different resources or different avenues, or they need a larger, broader client set that they can reach into. So they're looking for that great company that kind of merges with them and is a complement to their current service and might be exciting to help grow the company inorganically. So our team goes out and looks for the best kind of complement to their business and targets those companies, and then they make a decision as to which ones they're interested in. We would do the research for them. We would help them with intel around those markets and the companies themselves, and they make a decision as to they want to go out and make an offer to buy that company. Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth, et cetera. They make the decision to buy the company, then they ask us to help with the diligence effort on the company they want to acquire, so that we're looking at their books and records, we're looking at the last 3 months of sales, we're looking at the last 3 months of profits, we're looking at their balance sheet, their management team, all of the HR and benefit issues around their team, what kind of bonus programs they have, retention of employees, to see if it's a good complement, something worthy of buying. And what kind of growth have they seen over the last few years? So if that intel, the diligence proves positive and there's no gnarly issues, if you will, out there, or there's a few that can be corrected, whether they're employment agreements or they've had some tax issues in the past or what have you, there's ways to wall those off contractually. Then that diligence for them is a positive thing. And they like the benefit of the service. And then once the company's acquired, the third leg of this is an actual integration plan. So there's a lot around that. Meghan's team knows heavily that it's critical to ensure the culture is merged and that they can blend well and the communications are done right. But reviewing who has the optimal benefits, who has the whether it's a 401 match or it's your medical coverage or other coverages and life insurances and things. You want to try to make it whole for the employee. So there's not no negative impact. It's almost favorable by merging the two. And that's the best way to be able to do that. But overall, from a financial perspective, obviously, two companies blended together, you almost want 1 + 1 to be more than a 2. With the growth in the clients and or the products, and then sharing clients amongst each other, you could get 20-30% growth on the merged revenue of the two companies. And likewise with the back office, a lot of times human resources, IT, compliance, finance, accounting, basically you don't need two teams of people to handle that kind of volume. Usually, if you're talking smaller business, 50 to 150 employees, you merge the two. There's probably some capacity amongst the two groups synergize. So you probably could offload duplicative services, like 2 CFOs aren't necessary, 2 human resource directors or VPs aren't necessary, controllers, that type of thing. So that your EBITDAs, if you earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, that's your target number of what your bottom line cash is. The merger of those two should be also almost 30% higher, depending on the synergies you can find between the companies. There's lots of other metrics to look at, like, for instance, working capital targets, if that's part of your contract. You want to make sure that the last 12 months of working capital, if you have a negotiated amount that's a target, it is deliverable and you don't pay more or less than you should for that company. As well as the equity structure, you want to make sure that if you've taken on a bunch of debt, that your covenants can be covered with the long-term forecasts of the company. So whatever you lock yourselves into with the bank, you definitely want to make sure that you can deliver that, with whether it's a debt to equity ratio or a current ratio, a current assets to current liabilities. They need to all fit in with that acquisition. Turnover, obviously, because of the culture, you want to make sure that folks are happy, that merger is well communicated, as I mentioned. But if you start to see major turnover and stuff, you've got to find out what that issue might be. Why are the employees leaving? And that with the leaving of employees comes revenue decreases. So that metric of turnover is really key, and particularly early on to be watching for that. Overall liquidity, balance sheet issues, your cash flows, all of those things are important, just as the single company importance is.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to ask, how do you help? I assume you're also helping on diligence around the products and services that they offer as well. I mean, I've gone through mergers and come out the other side where it turns out like, yeah, we just got merged with a company and their technology is what never worked, and blah, blah, and whoever did the diligence clearly dropped the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're looking at the actual contractual agreements and their customer set, and there'll be a time where they'll open that window and you can actually interview the customers, because you definitely want to kick all the tires before you decide to make that acquisition.
Yep.
Yeah, and I want to unpack a little bit more on that. The cultural kind of side of things. But before we do so, it sounds to me like you're approaching this from customers that are looking to do an acquisition, or maybe you're on the higher side of the negotiating table here. Do you have companies coming to you that are looking to get acquired, or they don't have too many options left in front of them, and see you all as an outlet to help? Or how are you finding that other company, and then are they in a short list in your system as well, of like, all right, we're always going to keep an eye out for somebody that's looking to buy or so forth?
Sure. Likewise, we could also help them with diligence, making sure their financials are clean and solid to prepare for a sale, or maybe a divestiture of a piece of business that they don't want to continue to grow for whatever reason. But for sure, we could either help them source to find a company that would like to buy them, that's actually synergistic with them or complementary in some way. But we definitely would help them to look through their entire financials, their employee complement, their policies, procedures, and practices, to make, dust things off, clean them up, make sure that they are easily auditable, or they have an audit in place maybe, and look at those audits and see what the outcomes were. But definitely you'd want to help them create a full deck to sell the business. They usually call them a SIM, confidential information memorandum. And that's kind of your little sales portfolio from soup to nuts about the marketplace and the size of the market and the markets they're actually in, and their customer set and their financials and their management team. All of that is kind of given at a high level, but enough information to show that the business is worthy of purchasing or looking further into it.
Yeah, such a complex event for both parties to go through. It's very emotional, I'm sure. These are businesses that they've been like growing for years. Maybe their business baby, if you will. So I want to talk about that sensitivity, Meghan, and how that rolls into the just kind of like the cultural aspect of one team and integrating with another team. How do you go about this? And talk me through a little bit more of like you went through it firsthand, right? With Wolf Den and Associates. So maybe you can lead in with that on, what you experienced through that kind of merger acquisition and how you apply that to some of your customers when you're helping with consulting with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first two letters of merger are me, right? And so when you talk about merging two services organizations, the most important aspect of what you sell every single day is your people. And so that was kind of a critical piece of our merger internally. And that's also how we lean in when we support clients, understanding and getting right and thinking about pre-close. What are the cultural aspects that we need to be aware of? How does the business get business done? How do they communicate? Do they communicate? What are, Greg mentioned it earlier. What are the benefit plans? Are we trying to combine two organizations from day one, or are we going to take a more timely, structured approach to bringing the organizations together? So when we advise on a client, ideally, we're always in the door having conversations with them before they even get to close. There's things that you pick up through interviews, through sitting through management presentations, where you think, okay, hold on a minute. I think I heard they do business this way. Let me make sure that I confirm that. When you get a management team in a room, both management teams in the room, and you're able to sit down and really, truly ask them, what is it you are looking to achieve here? And what is the end goal of this transaction? You're able to start pulling out those cultural aspects that are important to make sure that folks focus on. We did a transaction, we advised on a transaction where, the management teams were trying really hard to pull out the cultural integration. They said, no, that's going to be separate. It's going to be different. We're not going to focus on that right now. Well, everything you do is your cultural integration, right? How you decide how you're going to communicate with the group at large is part of your cultural integration. How you decide what benefit plans to keep. Are we taking the best of both worlds in both of these organizations to combine and make NewCo that much better? Or is this truly an acquisition and we're going to just subsume everybody and all the services and we're going to move on, right? And so to your point, Tim, a little earlier about their baby, lots of founders, this is their heart and their soul, and 24/7 for the last however many years. And so that is, you have to be sensitive to that. You have to understand where they're coming from. You have to understand what is the end goal. What is their goal after transaction? Are they like, cool, I'm done here. I'll see you at the beach. Don't call me if you need anything. Right. Or do they want to continue to be involved? Because even those critical decisions pre-close affect what day 1 looks like, affect what day 30 looks like, and affect what day 100 looks like. And those first 100 days are the most critical to success.
I imagine there's a lot of also just as the reality sets in of what's actually happening, a little bit of like some rethinking, or I'm sure
pulling out. 100%. Real estate all the time. Like, like seller's remorse. I don't want to sell my home. It's
or you drive past it right after you've closed and you're like, oh, that's my house, right? No, it's not your house. Or what did they do to the landscaping, right? I mean, it's the same when you talk about, a founder and them kind of moving on from their business, if you will. And you have to know what those expectations are up front, or it leads to some, there could be some really strong personalities that come out of the other side. So,
and you don't want to be tied to that negative kind of PR that comes from whatever that is or what have you.
Right. The goal is going in the positive direction, right? It's another chapter for the organization. It's another chapter for the founders and the owners. And it's a positive one. And so, all of those factors have an impact on what the culture of the new organization looks like.
I've got a lot of questions around the process. So, I'm just play a hypothetical, and I was, looking to acquire a business, and, I engage Deepwater Point, and I say, is there a certain number of companies that you present and you recommend, like, hey, look, make sure you're like, I'm going to send you 3 or 4. I want you to look at these before, settling on this one or this one. What level of like guidance are you, for maybe someone that's never done this before, are there like some kind of, good standard practices here that you advise them on of, don't jump at the first one, or, whatever it might be? I'm curious on that process.
So I think it really depends on whether or not they know the entity coming into it. So if an organization comes to us blind and says, hey, help me find a target to acquire, we sit down, we understand, what are they trying to achieve? Is it growth? To Greg's point earlier, are we trying to gain additional capabilities? Are we purchasing technology? We try to really dig down and understand what is the genesis for this potential acquisition. What are they trying to achieve? And then we present lots of candidate profiles. It's like matchmaking at the end of the day, right? Well, this one doesn't feel right. The management teams got together, the founders got together. This wasn't a good match. Okay, why? What are those reevaluation criteria that we're going to then go back and whittle down? And so it's an iterative process. We're constantly having conversations with the ownership about what makes the most sense. And there's lots of companies that do, that service the government. And so we're always out there looking for, additional targets. And sometimes it can take a really long time for a company to make a decision about what that next investment's going to look like. And sometimes it's quicker, right? Because it feels right. It feels good. Everybody gets together. It just makes sense. Financially, it makes sense. From a synergy perspective, it makes sense. And they go for it.
Yeah.
Are they ever coming to you with that sort of like that part? Like, I haven't come from the space. I know that I was at companies that were acquired by company. We knew each other. Like, we had been working together for a long time, and we're like, we don't know how to make, like, we want to merge. And with that type of situation, also, they'd be coming to you for helping with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of clients that we support, those are existing relationships, right? CEOs maybe have known each other for a really long time, or they play in some of the same spaces, or they do some of the same things, but for different agencies. So they've crossed paths, and there's already an existing understanding and relationship there. So absolutely, Mike, there's most of the time, that's kind of what comes to us is, hey, we've already had this conversation. We've been dancing around each other. Help us come to the table. Help us figure out what the deal should look like. And then how do we merge and integrate these two entities to make sure that we get the true value at the end of the day?
Cool. You don't have to answer this in specifics, but, from a cost perspective, right? A couple of questions on that. So how do you all kind of charge? Is this like a retainer that you all charge? Is it an hourly? Is there a percentage of the acquisition that gets filtered out? Like, how is it, what might a founder expect if they're engaging Deepwater on, how something like this is serviced or charged to them?
You want me to answer that, Meghan?
I can take
you
it.
Don't have to, you don't say the specific numbers. I'm just curious.
Well, it depends on what the request is. So a due diligence effort, depending on the size of the company, we kind of know how many hours and the people we would use. So we try to give them a fixed price, and usually that works out pretty well, and they can gauge and know if they financially can afford it. But if they walk away from the deal, that fixed price is still owed. It's not contingent upon closing a sale or a purchase.
I see.
And likewise, though, there are instances where we go out and canvass the community and decide what company they would want to acquire. And if the deal goes through, we can get, say, more upside and do a succession fee. So it's really costly to buy a company and in the millions of dollars. So a success fee for us, even though we've done a lot of front work for, lower cost, if you will, on a perspective of the whole deal. If it really goes through and we get a success fee, it's really a nice thing.
Yeah. Yes, success fees on real estate transactions are also, pretty lofty. A lot of this guy, I just relate a lot of it to recruiting too. When we do like an executive search, right? It could take up to 6 months to find this right person, and it's a lot of iteration on. We thought we wanted this is what we thought we needed. Now we think we need this, and it's like having that flexibility with the client, knowing that this isn't an easy decision by any means, and it might take as long as it takes. Having that flexibility with them seems like something that is super valuable to offer them. Cool. I think that's all I had on the that kind of side of the transactional stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to add on that, Meghan or Greg, before we transition to the final segment? Cool. No. Yeah, I think we knocked out quite a bit. Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna close it out with a final segment called the 5-second scramble. This is a fun way to kind of cap things off with some rapid fire Q&A. Some of it business, some of it just kind of fun, personal stuff, not too personal. I'll lead it to you, Mike, to kick it off with Greg, and then Meghan, I'll lead you off after that.
So here we go. What's the biggest trend you're seeing, or a big trend you're seeing in GovCon right now?
Okay. So we had somebody in-house who went to a conference, and the intel they brought back was companies are leaning in to try to get more fixed price deals versus time and material. So they're pricing out the jobs and estimating the amount of time, but they're leaning towards more fixed price deals instead of the time and material, meaning pay by the hour, and then you just rack up and keep going until you've got your end product. So that's kind of new. The other piece is that companies in the consulting space really also need some kind of a bolt-on, whether it's a IP, a piece of software that they also can help to engage their client and sell that furthers their business. So many companies, even though they're considered consulting firms, they have 1, 2, 3, or 4 products that enhance what they offer from a consulting perspective.
Is there a historical figure who inspired you throughout your career?
Oh, gosh. I love finance. So I think Warren Buffett is amazing. He's an investor that most people aspire to be. So I read his book, Snowball, some 900 pages. Fascinating.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Gosh, work hard and learn a lot.
There you go. Good advice. What's the biggest challenge Deepwater's facing right now?
So we are getting solidarity. That's why I'm at the company, so we can prepare for potential other acquisitions. And we want to ensure that our consultants are here for the long haul and the employees are here for the long haul. So, they like the culture and we have adequate growth.
Speaking of culture, what's your favorite cultural value?
I think we have really good people. They care about each other, and there's some activities after work that we have. And so it's kind of a fun place to be.
Switching gears a little, what was your favorite meal as a kid?
Oh, gosh. I would say spaghetti.
Nice. Right? What's the most outdated piece of technology that you just can't let go of?
Gosh, Excel, but it's not outdated.
It'll never go outdated. Never go outdated.
It's phenomenal. I mean, I used to use WYSIWYG and Lotus 1-2-3. I'm aging myself. They were dogs. You could type in a string of 16 characters to get your printer to work.
Come on, you can still you can play a flight simulator game in Excel. In the old days.
I don't think. Yeah, We don't have technology that we want to throw out the window yet here.
So what's the largest land animal you think you could take in a street fight?
Oh my gosh. I want to say alligator, but I'd probably get killed.
Yeah, I might put money on that alligator, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd get eaten alive.
That's
not a fair question.
I mean, you could pick a bunny rabbit or a turtle. It doesn't have to be a predator.
Right. Okay, that's probably more appropriate.
What's a charity or corporate philanthropy that's near and dear to you?
Yeah, so I helped with their books and records for 3 years. It's a company called, Changing Perceptions. And basically it's ex-cons who come out of the prisons and they're trying to get work. And so I think it's really an admirable cause, and it's a tough thing, right? That you got these people who paid their time and they got that black mark on their record. And so giving them a chance, it was really great. A lot of the organization found them jobs, whether it's a trash collector or starting their own business, or they actually clean the kitchens for all the restaurants downtown DC.
That's awesome.
So,
in fact, one of the companies I worked with, we had our cleaning guy. He had gone through the prison system, started his own company, and still lived in Baltimore. And basically, he only employed people from the neighborhood, ex-cons, stuff like that, just giving them an opportunity to work, and it was all cleaning services and stuff like that. It was pretty awesome. Very inspirational guy. All right, last one. If you could live in any time period in history, which would you choose?
Oh gosh. Probably the 40s, I guess. And the reason is we didn't have all the technology today. I think that the kids are so used to trying to grab technology to run their life instead of actually living, with the ball and the bat and going outside. And we're losing that internal communication and care that we have.
Nice. All right. All done. Well done. Good job.
Well done. I'm going to tee you up with an alligator fight here at the end of this, Greg. All right, Megan, you ready to rock and roll?
I don't know. I hope so.
We'll be gentle here. I'm gonna tee this up because I forgot to ask this in our conversation about Deepwater Point's product. So explain Deepwater Point's product, GWAC North Star, to me as if I was a 5-year-old.
Oh, as if you were a 5-year-old? Oh, gosh. Well, there's this thing called the federal government. I would say GWAC North Star is our software as a service product that we developed based on feedback and insight that we got from our clients, which is that, it's hard not only to win one of these contracts, but then to manage all the task orders that come out of it. And I may win it, and then I don't have anybody to kind of catch all of the task orders that come out and vet them and figure out whether or not I should go after them. And so lots of organizations wind up not actually getting the value. So GWAC North Star is that supplement to your BD team that can help take a look at all those task orders and determine whether or not they're of value to you and whether or not you should go after them. And we do it in real time.
Very sophisticated 5-year-old, but
yeah,
it's not a fair question.
It's a trick question because adults don't understand our federal government and how it works at this point. So trying to explain a product to streamline all that. So yeah, you did a great job. Give me your favorite aspects of the company culture at Deepwater Point.
Oh, gosh. I love the fact that no matter who you are and where you come from, if you contribute to federal government services, we've got a place for you. We truly have some of the best, most the best, smartest, most innovative individuals that we can tap into every day. And it just makes our work environment exciting. You never know who you're going to walk into. You never know who you're going to be placed on an engagement with. So just constant learning, growing, coaching, mentoring. It's great.
What would you say is one of the most sought after attributes of a consultant that would thrive at Deepwater?
Oh, certainly the agility. Not every consulting firm, you're consulting one day on a $50 million company and the next day on a $2 billion company, right? So the agility to bring your best self, your ability to be confident in what you bring to the table, to listen, to collaborate, those are all really important.
What kind of roles are you actively hiring for at Deepwater?
Interesting question. So we're always looking for the best and the brightest, I would say. We've got some openings for some orals coaches. Capture and proposal folks are always technical writers, proposal managers. Those are always individuals that we're looking to have conversations with.
When it comes to meshing cultures between two businesses post-merger, what's the biggest hurdle that you see kind of impacting a smooth transition?
Misalignment with what the ultimate goal is. So a lot of times individuals or organizations will say, we want to do no harm. What does that mean? Tell me what that means. It's different to every single person, right? Or we, I'll just leave it at that. It's really hard to overcome if there's misalignment from the beginning around what the ultimate goal is at the end of the day.
Good stuff. Describe your morning routine.
Let's see. I get up. I'm trying to go to Pilates a couple days a week, but mostly it's just running full speed ahead into the day. Got 2 little kids, so we're getting everybody dressed and off to school. Breakfast in the car sometimes, and then my commute from Haymarket into Tyson's and coffee along the way.
There you go.
Only one coffee along the way?
No. So usually I have a coffee that I've started before I leave the house and gets me most of the way through my drive. And then immediately upon entry into the office, I am grabbing another one. Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. What's an area of GovTech modernization that you're most excited to see in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that question.
No worries. We can jump that one.
Sorry.
What's your favorite app on your phone?
Oh, my favorite app on my phone is... This is going to be lame, but probably my kids' school app. Because it lets me know what I'm missing, right? Like it connects with my calendar. When are they getting home? What after school activities do we have? And those sorts of things. And so
what's the name of it?
Keeps me straight. So we've got Parent View is the name of the one that our county uses, but it the teacher connects into it. So I get text messages from it, and cool. Let's know that back to school night's coming, so don't work late. Those sorts of things.
Interesting space.
Yeah.
What's a charity or corporate philanthropy that's near and dear to you?
So I love to bake, and I work with an organization called Cakes for Kids, which donates birthday cakes to kids in foster care. And so for me, it's just about making sure that even if you're in a tough situation, a non-permanent home, you have the ability to be celebrated that day.
That's awesome. My wife's a huge baker, so I'm going to have to tip her off to that. That seems like a really neat
It's a great organization. They've got really great reach here in the Northern Virginia area. It's wonderful.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. And we'll put both of those philanthropies in the show notes as well.
Wonderful. That's great.
If you could have dinner with any celebrity, past or present, who would it be with?
George Clooney.
No hesitation.
It's such a dreamboat. Enough said. Yeah, I don't need to say anymore.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say other than, go to Lake Como and have dinner in Italy with him. Done.
You just painted the picture. Last one. What is the worst fashion trend that you have ever followed?
Oh gosh. That I've ever followed? I don't know. I think I'm pretty fashionable, but I have to say that I'm really not a fan of like when the 70s comes back around, like big bell bottoms and like chunky shoes and that whole thing. Not into it.
It's happening as we speak, isn't it?
I know. And so I'm sticking with what works for me.
There you go.
That's fair. Good answer. Awesome. Oh, that is a wrap on the 5-second scramble and on the episode. So I just want to thank you both so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing about this interesting work that you're doing at Deepwater Point and Associates and continuing to kind of drive this new future of creative work. I think it's great for industries like our federal government and defense. So thanks for what you're doing and thanks for joining us on the pod.
Thanks for having us.